I was sitting on the cold porcelain edge of a bathtub in a Dallas hotel room at 2 in the morning, holding a soaking wet towel against the back of my neck. I was 56 years old. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a heavy diesel engine trying to throw a rod. My vision was slightly blurred at the edges, and I had a blinding, throbbing headache radiating from the base of my skull. Alyssa was asleep in the next room, completely unaware that I felt like I was having a localized cardiovascular emergency. About 3 hours earlier, after a heavy steak dinner and a few drinks, I had taken a synthetic blue pharmacy pill, expecting it to just smoothly fix a mechanical failure I had been dealing with. I expected a magic override. Instead, my body was violently rejecting the chemical combination I had just forced into my bloodstream. I sat there in the dark bathroom feeling incredibly foolish, realizing I was treating a highly volatile pharmaceutical compound like it was a daily vitamin. If you are watching this right now and you are currently relying on a pharmacy prescription to maintain your physical connection in the bedroom, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I know exactly how tempting it is to view those medications as a simple, harmless shortcut to getting your prime back. I am going to explain exactly why that pill is causing the heavy side effects you are quietly ignoring, and I will walk you through the massive mechanical mistakes men make when taking it. I promise you, what you are putting in your tank is a high-pressure chemical override, and if you do not understand how it interacts with the rest of your engine, you are going to cause permanent damage to your hardware. I spent the entire flight back to Phoenix the next morning reading the actual clinical pharmacology of what I had ingested. I realized I was operating under a massive, dangerous delusion. We assume the blue pill actually creates arousal or builds physical vitality. It does absolutely neither of those things. Mechanically, the pill is just a localized chemical clamp. It aggressively blocks an enzyme in your body so that once nitric oxide opens your blood vessels, they are artificially forced to stay open, trapping the blood in the pelvic region. It is a brute force override of your cardiovascular system, and when you force a major vascular pathway to suddenly lock open, your blood pressure drops, and your heart has to pump frantically to compensate and keep oxygen flowing to your brain. It is a massive structural stress test on an aging engine, and I was actively doing things that made that stress test exponentially more dangerous. The first massive mistake I was making was treating my digestive system like a concrete mixer right before taking the medication. That night in Dallas, I had eaten a heavy ribeye steak, potatoes, and a dense dessert. When you load your stomach with heavy animal fats and dense carbohydrates, your central nervous system diverts a massive amount of your blood supply directly to your gut to process the sludge. If you take the pharmacy pill on top of a heavy meal, the pill gets trapped in the digestive backlog. The thick fats physically coat the lining of your stomach, preventing the medication from entering your bloodstream. You end up sitting there for 2 hours waiting for a response that never comes. So, assuming it did not work, you go to sleep. And then, 4 hours later, when the stomach finally clears, the chemical hits your bloodstream all at once while you are lying flat in the dark, causing a massive, painful spike in heart rate and a blinding headache. I had to learn the mechanical rule of the empty pipeline. If you are going to use the synthetic override, your digestive tract must be clear. You take it on a completely empty stomach or after a very light, incredibly lean protein meal. You have to give the chemical a clean, unobstructed pathway to the bloodstream, or you turn a predictable medication into a delayed explosive. The second mistake is the dark habit of trying to manage performance anxiety with a chemical depressant. Like a lot of men who rely on the pill, I was terrified of it not working. That anxiety created a tight, cold knot in my chest. To calm my nerves and loosen up before being intimate, I would drink 2 or 3 glasses of heavy bourbon. This is an absolute biological disaster. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant, meaning it numbs the exact brain signals required to trigger the physical response in the first place. But more dangerously, alcohol is also a powerful vasodilator. It artificially expands your blood vessels globally. When you combine alcohol with a blue pill, which is an aggressive, localized vasodilator, you cause a catastrophic crash in your systemic blood pressure. Your heart has to go into absolute overdrive just to keep you from passing out. That is exactly why I was sitting on the edge of the bathtub, feeling like my chest was going to explode. You cannot mix a chemical depressant with a high-pressure cardiovascular override. I had to make a hard, non-negotiable rule. On the nights I needed the mechanical support, alcohol was completely removed from the table. I had to face the intimacy completely sober and let my nervous system manage the pressure naturally. If the mechanical logic of clearing your digestive pipeline and protecting your blood pressure makes sense to you, or if you have ever experienced those brutal side effects and wondered what went wrong, hit the like button right now. It is incredibly important that we get this specific biological truth in front of other men who are currently mixing heavy meals, alcohol, and prescription pills, and quietly wondering why their heart feels like it is failing. We have to share the actual mechanics of how this chemical operates. The third error is the most psychologically destructive, and it comes from a complete misunderstanding of what drives male vitality. I was using the pill to force a mechanical erection, but because I was chronically exhausted, stressed from my corporate life, and running on terrible sleep, my dopamine and testosterone levels were completely flat. I had a forced physical response, but absolutely zero biological desire to actually be intimate with my partner. I was performing a physical task like a zombie. It felt entirely disconnected and hollow. The pill does not generate the desire to pursue, it just pumps the tires. When you rely on a chemical to force the hardware to work, but you completely ignore the hormonal software that actually makes intimacy meaningful, your partner feels the disconnect instantly. Alyssa knew I was physically present, but completely absent behind the eyes. I had to realize that the pill is not a substitute for masculine drive. I had to start protecting my sleep architecture and managing my daily stress to rebuild my natural dopamine baseline. I had to actually want the connection, rather than just chemically forcing my body to show up for roll call. Getting the heavy fats out of the way, eliminating the alcohol crash, and demanding real hormonal drive changed how I viewed the pharmacy option entirely. It made me realize that the pill is a fragile, temporary patch, not a permanent solution. I am an absolute realist about the damage a man accumulates after 50. Relying on a synthetic chemical to constantly force your valves open makes your natural cardiovascular baseline incredibly weak over time. I realized that to ever get off the pill, I needed to rebuild the internal infrastructure so the engine could run independently. I went looking for a natural protocol that actually stimulated the factory floor instead of just hot wiring the ignition. The daily formulation I rely on incorporates forskolin. Instead of just trapping blood in a localized area like the pharmacy pill, forskolin directly penetrates the cellular walls and activates the specific enzymes responsible for natural testosterone production. It forces your own hardware to manufacture the drive from the inside out. The protocol also uses a highly concentrated black pepper extract, specifically piperine. As we get older, our gut lining becomes incredibly inefficient at absorbing nutrients. You can take all the premium compounds in the world, but if they pass right through you, they are useless. Piperine acts as a biological multiplier, forcing the gut wall to open up and aggressively absorb the active ingredients directly into the bloodstream. I never tell another man what he should add to his routine, but if you want to look at the exact formulation I use to activate my own production lines and ensure the materials are actually absorbed, I put a link in the pinned comment right below this video. You can also simply scan the QR code you see on your screen right now. I spent a long time looking for a clean, logical mechanism that I could trust to rebuild my baseline so I would not have to rely on a synthetic override forever. Because here's the deepest truth about relying on the blue pill as you get older. It conditions you to treat your own body like a vending machine. You think you can just drop a coin in the slot, punch a button, and demand a result, completely ignoring the fact that the machine is rusting from the inside out. When I was sitting in that Dallas hotel bathroom, I was paying the physical price for demanding performance from an engine I was actively poisoning. When I stopped mixing the chemical with alcohol, stopped burying it under heavy food, and eventually transitioned to rebuilding my natural cardiovascular health, I did not just lose the headaches and the heart palpitations. I got my dignity back. I stopped feeling like a dependent patient trying to chemically manage a decline and became a man who was actively maintaining his own machinery. Many men allow a pharmacy prescription to give them a false sense of security, assuming the pill means they do not have to do the hard work of managing their diet, their stress, and their internal health. They ride that chemical crutch until it finally breaks. You do not have to accept a life of managing brutal side effects and hollow intimacy. You own the nervous system and you have the absolute authority to fix the engine properly. Tell me in the comments, Have you ever experienced a blinding headache or a racing heart after taking the pharmacy option? And did you realize it was because of how you were treating your body that evening? I read every single comment, and I know exactly how alarming those physical warning signs can be. Do not spend another evening treating your cardiovascular system like a rental car that you can just aggressively hotwire. The longer you rely on a synthetic patch while ignoring the fuel and the pressure, the harder it is to ever get your natural capacity back. Start clearing the digestive pipeline and eliminating the alcohol when you need your hardware to function. And if you want to give your internal engine the specific cellular support it needs to naturally activate your hormone production and absorb the right materials, look at the protocol I use. The link is right there in the pinned comment below, and the QR code is on your screen. Take a serious look at the biological mechanisms of the ingredients. Decide for yourself if the logic makes sense for the exact physical frustration you are dealing with right now. I am Cole Harrison. Keep doing the work.